Hey guys, in our devotion today, we're actually covering an entire book of the Bible. What do you know? We're looking at the book of Philemon, only one chapter, but we're going to cover the whole thing today. Before we get into that, though, let's remember to be in prayer for our church family. And today we are praying for Steve. And so, the book of Philemon. This is one of the shortest letters that Paul wrote, written to a man named Philemon. This is really an interesting letter. I mean, whereas those were mostly written to churches, giving them instructions to their leaders, and like we've been reading through 1 Corinthians, giving them, helping them understand the doctrine and how they live today. This is more of a personal letter from Paul to Philemon. Even though it does say, it's written also to the church. Philemon is maybe a leader. Maybe this church just meets in his house and he's just hospitable. But it's interesting because it's dealing with a potential problem that is going on. And I think we really see Paul practicing what he's been teaching the Corinthian people in the passages that we have been studying leading up to this. Unity. He's been talking about love. He's been talking about bearing with one another, forgiving one another. And this passage, this letter to Philemon, is really putting those principles of following Christ, of love, treating each other as more important than yourself. It brings those things to life. It helps us to see that. What we know is that Philemon was a Christian. He was probably a wealthy person. As we say, the church met in his house. And he had a bondservant named Onesimus. Onesimus, at one point, apparently has fled from Philemon. And he goes to Rome. He's hiding out. He doesn't want to go back to Philemon. Just by the providence of God being in control, Onesimus somehow ends up coming in contact with Paul. Paul is a prisoner in Rome at this time, in prison for preaching the gospel. And this bondservant on the run, this thief, he gets saved. He comes to know Christ through his interaction with Paul, I suppose. We don't know all the details. But we do know that Paul cherished this relationship with Onesimus. But there was this problem. There was sort of this issue that they hadn't dealt with, which is the fact that Onesimus, he had done some wrong in his past. He had fled. Maybe he had stolen, whatever. And as easy as it would have been for Paul and Onesimus to just kind of be like, well, that's in the past, let's keep on going, Paul sends Onesimus back with this letter. And the intention of this letter is completely to deal with, and I think sometimes when it comes to difficult situations like this, some things that maybe it could be difficult, maybe it could cause a rift in a relationship, maybe we don't know how the outcome of it is, we can have a tendency to try to sweep those things under the rug and try to gloss over them and ignore them. And unfortunately, the problem that happens is that the truth doesn't come out. We hide things in darkness instead of dealing with them, and they can fester below the surface and end up causing more damage in the end. Paul here is banking on the fact that Philemon knows the Lord, and that Philemon is going to receive Onesimus with grace and with mercy, and certainly understanding that Onesimus has accepted Christ, and that this is going to end up bringing more unity and greater unity. And I think that's what we have to be willing to do as followers of Christ, because just like this, there's going to be situations where we have to deal with the mess. Maybe it's something we did, maybe it's something somebody else did to us, but the tendency is to not deal with it in our flesh. We want to push it away, and sometimes maybe it might even cause us to leave our church family and find another church. It may cause us to gossip or to talk bad about somebody. What Paul's practicing here is bringing things into the light so they can be dealt with, and so that we have the opportunity to act out what it means to be a follower of Christ, to put others before ourselves, to show forgiveness, to show love, like he was talking about with the First Corinthians. I want to encourage you and myself to always examine ourselves, examine how we're acting, and to really carefully guard our relationships in the church. And if something needs to be dealt with, do it with love, do it carefully, but don't let things fester. Deal with the problems that need to be dealt with. Nothing can be harmed by bringing the truth out to light and letting the Lord work and ministering to one another in that, and growing our relationships and finding deeper and deeper unity. I pray that this letter ministered to you today. I know that it did. I know that the Holy Spirit can speak to us and is speaking to us. And if God spoke to you today, leave us a message on Facebook and YouTube. Let us know what God said to you. Let's minister to one another. God bless you.